This video is brought to you by Squarespace. When it comes to websites, online stores, etc., there's no place to build a beautiful online presence like Squarespace. Okay guys, I'm back, as promised, and I'm here to talk Stranger Things Volume 2. As you probably know, I really enjoyed the first volume. I thought it was one of the best seasons the show has had in a long time, and did get me to fall back in love with it. Volume 2, before I go any further, I do want to touch on the release choice, given the fact that now that we've seen it and went through that, we can kind of see how it feels. And I don't know if I like it. I think generating the hype so that everyone watches Volume 2 at once is fun. July 1st really did feel like a whole holiday. But you know what else generates hype into one singular night? The traditional week-by-week schedule. I seriously don't know what Netflix's logic is here and why they refuse to do this. I get that episode 7 kind of ends on a note that feels like an end, where maybe that does mark the end of Volume 1 and we need to split it up somehow. I wouldn't necessarily call them halves because Volume 2 is just so much shorter than the rest of it. It's just, what? But I seriously think finishing episode 7 and then waiting a week for these last two as opposed to a month would have been a better move. Speaking only for myself, I personally would have felt a little bit more warmed up and invested because I won't lie, even though it was just a month, I still kind of had to pretend to care a little bit. It is an interesting way of releasing something, I'll give them that. I do have a little theory that they filmed multiple ways this could have ended and then decided which cut to go with depending on how fans reacted online, because there really is a point in episode 9 where you're like, oh, so everyone is gonna die, but some are luckier than others. But that's just a little theory of mine. I doubt it happened. But what if? If you're watching this and you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. I'm gonna spoil it. This entire time they are milking the Steve thing. The man talks about his future every time he's on screen, and I'm like, okay, we get it. He's dead. And then it doesn't really evolve into anything other than a cute Nancy Steve moment, which, let me be clear, thank God it didn't end with him dying. I'm so glad this man is still here. But I'm like, what was that all for? Why did they do that? Speaking of Nancy, I loved her in these last two episodes. It truly felt like she got left in the dust the last few seasons, and I'm glad they recognized Natalia Dyer as one of the better actors on the show. Same goes with Caleb McLaughlin. He really killed his performance in Volume 2, and I'm glad they've given him this much to work with. His whole scene with that one kid was interesting. After all the buildup of making this kid just the worst human you've ever met, I wish his downfall was a bit more satisfying than it was, but seeing him get ripped in half still felt pretty good. Now, I want to take this time to apologize to the Noah Schnapp fandom. He was good these last two episodes, I'll admit it. I honestly think a lot of my distaste for his character this season is from the writing, not his acting. They really don't give him anything to work with, but these last two he sort of went somewhere. And you know, that Jonathan Will moment is one of my favorites, so I'm sorry, okay? Finn Wolfhard I'm still not on board with. He didn't really sell his monologue. I hope he's better next season, and that's all I have to say about that. Eddie dying. You know, I'll admit, I didn't see this one coming. I know all the signs were pointing towards him dying, but it still hurts so damn much. Especially because I kind of liked his heavy metal scene more than I thought I would. He just adds something to the group that they didn't have, and now that he's gone, I'm just like, god damn it. Especially because the town still hates him. It's just depressing. It's so weird, they don't even really acknowledge he died. The only one that seems to care is Dustin, and I'm like, does no one else give a shit? It's just a really unfortunate death in the show that I'm sure will go in some interesting directions. I really hope it doesn't just end here, because this character added a lot to not only the town, but the story. And then there's Max. I mean, it is sad, of course, but obviously she's not dying. She just doesn't seem like a character they want to get rid of yet. Sadie Sink is so good in the show, and Max is too significant to fully get rid of here. So I don't know, maybe I'm just in my denial phase. Everyone just leave me alone. I do think she's heading into an interesting direction, and seeing the way her and Elle interact and like, does she have powers now? I don't know. I think she's such an interesting character. If they got rid of her, that would be one of the worst decisions the show will have ever made. I don't know why more people aren't upset about Dr. Brenner dying. I get he was the villain, but he was one of my favorite characters to watch. The goofy white hair and the menacing voice, I loved his character. I felt like we got to know him a little more each season, and this really felt like the first time where I was like, yeah, I could sit there and watch this man for a while. Then they got rid of him, which makes sense. They definitely needed to move forward from that whole thing, but a bummer. A Dr. Bummer. Speaking more technically, I really didn't like the way these episodes were edited or paced. They are clunky as hell and full of fan service, which was kind of annoying to see in a show that is usually pretty tight with its storytelling, especially in Volume 1. Like episode 9, man. what the hell? I could have watched the Minions movie twice in the time it took me to watch this. I'm pretty sure like 25% of the episode was footage from older seasons. Vecna would be like, you and your friends, and then they'd show like a bunch of shots of Eleven and Max hanging out, and I'm like, we know they're friends. One or two of these flashbacks are fine, but it really started to feel like a fan cam or something. Less is more. You do not need to remind us of their importance to one another. If you kill Eddie, we're gonna be sad. And the same goes for the dialogue. A lot of the monologues are characters just repeating the same things in different ways. Mike's monologue specifically was like, you're my everything, you're my superhero, you have powers, you're special, you're incredible, you're wonderful. I'm like, oh my god, we get it. I just don't think choices like these are entirely necessary, and it only annoys me because the episode already has so much it needs to accomplish. Like, there was so much filler that could have been cut. Sometimes trying to make something even more climactic can take away from the epic climax you're going for, and unfortunately that happened a few times in these last two episodes. Which sucks because the buildup was phenomenal. I was so excited for these last two episodes, and in trying to be the most epic thing possible, they kind of fall on their face. Don't get me wrong, I'm there. I believe that the stakes in the show have never been larger now that the town is literally destroyed. But in the process, they leave out a lot of details in regards to actual character relationships that would make this ending feel a lot more impactful. Don't show us flashbacks, show us the characters and their reactions to what's happening. We want to see them right now. When everyone's like about to die, they kind of just repeat the same shots of Steve choking and Hopper on the ground with the dog. I'm like, did they film no other coverage? And I think some of this brings me to a conclusion I have about this volume, which is, I don't know how excited I am for season 5. I mean, as is, it did feel like I had to warm myself up to caring about volume 2, even though it's literally only been a month. And at this point, stakes do feel at their limit. These characters seem just exhausted at this point. How much bigger can we really go with this? I'll tune in. Of course I'll tune in. And as always, I'll binge it all in like 3 days and make a video and call it the best season yet, only to backtrack on that like a week later. But I just hope they find a way to keep stakes high and to keep us on edge without losing sight of the grounded small town charm that made us fall in love with the show to begin with. And those are kind of my thoughts on volume 2. It's definitely not as good as volume 1. It was honestly kind of a disappointment for me, but you know, still better than season 3. Thanks for watching. Go watch Stranger Things and form your own opinion. And before you head out, excuse me, I'm down here. I want to thank this week's sponsor, Squarespace. Now, Squarespace, if you didn't already know, is a place where you can go online to build your brand, whether that be an online store, a blog, a portfolio, you name it. They have professional portfolio designs where you can create galleries for your work, as well as password protected pages for clients. And as someone like myself who makes YouTube videos and also films sometimes, I love their video block feature, which allows me to showcase some of my favorite work in a way that looks, really nice. Plus, they have a built-in mobile web designer, which makes it so that any website you make will automatically look great no matter what platform it's on, while still matching your style. Guys, I love Squarespace. My family loves Squarespace. My friends do. You should get in on all the fun. The best part about it all is that if you go to squarespace.com/Karsten, you can get 10% off of your first purchase. So really, there's no reason not to give it a shot. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and I will see you all in the next one.